Welcome back to Grill and Grow. My name's Austin, and today what I got going for you is pork ribs. And I'm going to be doing a few things. First, I'm going to be doing a review of some Arthur Bryant's rub and barbecue sauce. And I'm going to be doing a test between a foil wrap and a butcher paper wrapped rib. Alright everyone, let's get outside and I'll show you how I cook up these pork ribs. So with any pork rib, the first thing you're going to want to do is take off the membrane, and that's so that we can get a better contact with the rub and meat. Now with the pork ribs that I get here, the membrane is hard to take off because there's not a lot of meat, and so it's a little bit difficult to get that separation between the bone and the membrane. But I just worked a butter knife kind of underneath the membrane there and worked my finger underneath that, and then took my paper towel and grabbed it and just kind of ripped it off in a couple areas. Another thing that I've done here is you've noticed that I have the ribs on top of the instrument that I'm going to be using to hold them on in the smoker. And that's so that we can just shape them up a little bit better. And basically that just allows us to keep from hitting anything as we go inside the smoker with the ribs. You can see kind of the difficulties here with the membrane because it's just not a lot of meat on the back side of those ribs. It can be a little bit difficult to pull that off, but I get it right here and use the paper towel and just kind of rip what I can off. You'll notice that these ribs don't have a flap on the back side of them. And that's just the way that they're pre-cut and trimmed before going into the package. And that's okay, it's not gonna affect the flavor. It just keeps the pitmaster from having little snacks as he goes along in the cook. As I begin squaring up the ribs here, just a couple things. First, this helps with the appearance of the ribs if you're gonna put them in a presentation box or competition. It gives you kind of that straight bone appearance. And then also in the cooker, it helps them kind of cook a little bit more evenly. That way they all look the same when they're on the table. Doesn't really affect the flavor per se, just the appearance. As I season the back side of the rib here, I noticed that this rub has a really nice color in it, just due to the paprika that's in that rub. The second thing that I've noticed with this rub, and it's not as present on this side, but when I flip them over and season the front side, you'll notice that the meat sweats up really fast and really well with this rub. So my thought process kind of behind that is that it's going to be turbinado sugar that does that. I know lots of people like to use brown sugar, but I found that the turbinado sugar really sweats well into the meat. I went really liberal with this because I wanted to make sure that I tasted the rub underneath the sauce that I'm going to apply later. You'll also see me getting the side of the rib, and that's just for maximum flavor. After I get a good layer on the ribs, I pat the rub in, and that's because I found that if you rub the rub, it gets bunched up and it doesn't allow for the best bark formation. Now we're finished with applying the rub. We're going to move this to the side and get to the next step of this process. Only took about 10 minutes for that rub to sweat in nicely. So now we're going to go on the grill. We have a chimney full of charcoal lined evenly across the bottom of the kettle. And we're going to go bone side down the ribs first. And it's only going to be about 5 minutes, but you want to pay attention because it does char up pretty quickly. And you want to get them some char, but you don't want to overchar them. So we're getting a nice little smoke from our fire right now. So what we're going to do is go and check the bottom of these, and they were where I wanted them to be. And so we're just gonna flip them. And because those flames are getting up there a little bit, we're gonna go ahead and put the lid on and keep going and char the front side of these ribs. This is a nice little char on the top of those ribs. So what I'm gonna do next is go ahead and apply a light coat of rub in some of the areas where the tongs took off the rub. And this just kind of helps solidify that bark later on in the process. Little bit force of habit here. I'm still going to pat down the ribs as I apply that new coat of rub. Got the ribs going here in the smoker. Got some hickory wood chips. And today we're running it with our little bungee cord setup at 253 degrees. Hopefully we can keep that going. It's been 2 hours and we're ready to wrap and sauce these ribs. So we're going to use some Arthur Bryant's original barbecue sauce. I'm just going to take some of that sauce down the middle and then work it side to side until we have an even coat. And then we'll get our aluminum foil and get these wrapped up. We've made a boat and added some water for steam to help tenderize. And then we're just going to go back over with that Arthur Bryant's rub. And that's going to help us get that rub flavor as opposed to just having the sauce flavor from saucing the ribs. Here are the ribs after 2 hours in the wrap, and they look pretty good. That Arthur Bryant's rub has really come along nicely on the ribs. So we're going to go 1 more hour in the smoker, and then we'll see you on the cutting board. All right, we're back, and I've got those pork ribs in front of me, and I got one cut up. So let's go ahead and get to the taste test. I'm going to go first with the foiled pork rib. You can see it's got a very dark color to it, thanks to that barbecue sauce. There's a pretty decent smoke ring, and it's definitely tender. As you can see, it just kind of pulls apart. So let's get to it. Nice little bite. Definitely taste that Arthur Bryant sauce. It's very unique. I can't really put my finger on it. It's like a tomato barbecue sauce, but different than anything that you would get in the store, even different than other commercial brands of sauce. The foiled wrap rib is good, very tender, still moist. The bark on the outside is decent. It's not great, but it's decent. So let's get to the butcher paper one now. Even a better smoke ring on these ones. Still looking pretty tender. Let's give it a bite. Remember, the ribs I get here very thin, but that pulled right off the bone. Still very tender. I taste more of the rub on this one than the sauce. That's probably because of the butcher paper wrapping. Doesn't create as much steam as the foil. Still just as tender. The bark is a little bit better on this. So there's a little more texture to it. So definitely good. I like the barbecue sauce even though it's different. The rub I think is really good. I'm gonna have to do a video with just the rub on next rib run that I do. So definitely pleased with how this cook came out. All right, everyone, if you like what I'm doing, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, and you won't miss us. See you on the next one.